And we're up. So, last time on A Crown of Cold Iron proper, our intrepid heroes were delving into the time and space displaced ruins of the Raven Palace, severed from their historical precedent up above. The ruins, an ancient armory holding the deepest, darkest, and most powerful secrets of the Raven King and his coterie. You all had returned to its depths after being, well, chased out quite brutally last time by the Raven Spirit who inhabits the space. But you have returned, seeking the seal of the Raven King, a phantasmal fragment of an artifact which can help you contact the Summer King, the Fey counterpart to the Raven King, and perhaps persuade him not to storm through a growing portal beneath the neighborhood of Little Sylvain and set off some kind of wild fairy shenanigans. However, you discovered that the ruins were not as you left them. Some powerful force had blasted open this dungeon space, leaving it awash in trails of white fire. The strange, dark, raven like spirits that inhabit it, corrupted and transformed by its power. As you all passed into the private wing of the Raven King, into his very own bedroom, Auric, the brave sorcerer, opened the door, leading the party into what was the bedroom of his previous life, only to discover that it was inhabited by violent spirits. Combat ensued, and through a miserable combination of a gaping, bleeding wound and a widespread fear effect, the sorcerer Auric, once known as Bran the Raven King, bled out on the stones of his own hallway. Lexi, you were able to watch in horror as Auric's body dissolved in a glow of silver threads and silver motes, leaving behind his equipment and his clothing, including his iconic red sweater.
I was traumatized.
Cyrus, you eventually broke free of your fear effect, and for narrative purposes, we'll say that you were able to turn the tides on the shadow manipulating, fear inducing raven creature following you. You were able to disperse and dispatch it, adding another small floating raven spirit now hovering over your shoulders. And you two are able to return and see the forlorn sweater on the ground. What would you all like to do?
Well, like any good Minecraft player, I'm going to start by picking up all his crap so it doesn't despawn.
So, thinking
At least
practically,
that's my first instinct.
yeah, a practical response to this horrible thing you have seen, you immediately gather his effects. It's easy to just fold them into his own briefcase of holding, reducing them to something manageable to carry.
At least I don't have to take all his stuff and put it inside my bag of holding.
So you now have a briefcase with all of his belongings. The creatures you were fighting are dead, but it's now just the two of you in this hallway. How are you all feeling in this moment?
Really defeated. Really unsure of what to do next. Scared shitless about how Vela's gonna react. Not it. Also curious as to what the unraveling thread was doing. Now remind me, that was the sweater or was that the scarf? We had scarves, right?
I think the way in which it happened, you, the player, would know it
Okay.
was the scarf down in one of his bags.
Okay. Okay.
Lexi, I don't think would have any way to know that other than you might have caught that there was silver thread coming out of one of the bags and sort
Okay.
of winding around his body. But the significance of that is probably lost on you.
Okay. Yeah. So Lexi's like gut instinct. My gut instinct is to get out of here. Because if we don't have him, then there ain't a lot of purpose in trying to find this stamp seal thing,
Yeah.
signet. I forget what we were calling it.
Nor do I think we can survive opening any other doors, just the two of us.
Yeah, no, I don't know how much health you have, but I have 23 out of 104. So that's a lot for me.
I also have 23, but not out of 104.
Not out of 104. I also know I've been taking some pretty heavy hits. So when you're losing 20 plus points of damage on a hit, then
At 23, Cyrus's health bar is like in the yellow, and Lexi's health bar at 23 is like deep into the red. You have that like boing, boing, boing,
yeah,
boing, like heartbeat going on.
yeah.
Oh,
I have a quarter health. Less than, I guess. Yeah, less than. All right, so yeah, let's go back to the bar. I think that's the best place to go first. And talk about what we want to do.
all right. You all have cleared the whole way here, so there's nothing like waiting for you in the hallways.
Thank God for that.
So, what is the vibe as you all travel back?
Dark, quiet. I'm probably explaining to Cyrus what I saw that he didn't, since Cyrus wasn't there. Yeah, since he didn't get to see it. I'm explaining to him what I saw. Which of course, player can't remember off the top of her head. I hope I made good notes. No, I didn't. It's a good thing that John got to hear it because Rachel doesn't remember.
So, to give you the super quick recap, you all were in that sort of northeast corridor here.
Yeah.
That was the private area of the Raven King. Auric opened the door into the bedroom.
There was some
There was
fire.
there was a creature inside who appeared to immediately light the room on fire.
Yeah.
Something you all realized afterwards was an illusion. However, Auric misinterpreted the illusion and was thus very surprised when one of the fragments of the War Raven leapt on him as soon as he stepped into the room, resulting in a brief 2-on-1 scuffle that hurt him quite badly. You all fought it out in the hallway, but the raven creature here, the lesser fragment, was some kind of caster. You all were struck with confusion and then fear, stopping you all from being able to offer a strong resistance. And even though you dropped the fragment of the War Raven, you were not able to do so before Auric dropped unconscious with a lingering wound that you were not able to treat before it ran him out of death saves.
Yep.
At which point
He dead.
And the part that Cyrus would not have seen, but Lexi would have, was the briefcase opening, magical glowing thread coming out, and Auric vanishing, leaving all of his stuff behind.
So I guess what I'd like to do is investigate Auric's stuff.
Also, like we would know, or like Cyrus would know that that's not common for Fae, right?
Lexi wouldn't really have a clue. Maybe
You
she's seen a Fae die before, but
well, you all have definitely you all have killed a lot of Fae at
well,
this
that's true.
point. I would say give me an Arcana or Nature check, or Medicine, whatever you're best in.
Oh man, they're all the same.
So I'll say with those checks, you all do know you have definitely seen some Fae dissolve and disappear. Usually, it has been lesser Fae, like the very smallest, most sort of intangible. Whereas you remember for sure, like Lambton was a great big honking dragon corpse,
Right.
at least for quite a while. He might have dissolved more after you all left, but at least
Right.
when he died, he was a great big carcass.
Yeah. So this is more like, to put it in perspective and language Rachel understands. This is like when Voldemort died the first time and he just vanished into thin air rather than there being an actual body.
I mean, it definitely had a more sort of split the difference of like Tinkerbell magic and the Thanos snap.
Okay. Yeah.
He disintegrated, but in a pretty way.
Yeah. The Thanos snap was not pretty.
No.
Sorry, people yelling outside our window.
So you do know it seems unusual,
Yeah.
but it definitely there was a lot of blood. So you all make your way out.
And I forget if Cyrus has any sense that he needs to do something with these ravens before they leave.
Uh, Give me another Arcana check.
Like, do I think these phantasmal ravens can leave?
Let's see what you have sort of picked up about them.
Not much.
I mean, to be honest, it's hard to say. Um, this is a strange magic that you have not seen before. Um, what I'll do though, did you have 3 before this or 4?
I ended last session with 3, so
Okay, so you'd be
if
up to
we're
4
adding
now.
1, that would be 4.
You'll have to see what happens.
Okay.
So
They can come
you,
in pokey as long as they don't poop in it.
you have a moment of concern as you sort of reach the threshold. As you step out, they do sort of fade somewhat, but it seems more like they have not gone away. They've not been reduced. They're just less visible outside this space. If you really focus, you're still aware of them sort of flickering and moving around.
Okay.
All right, you all make your way out, passing back by the strange, ominous patches of white sparks and fire closer to the door. You crawl your way out, back through the sewer, and you return to Pokey. It is I think you said it is a quiet drive.
Yeah.
Some shock, some sadness, a lot of confusion, and you all return to lose. So, what do you do now?
And my first gut instinct is to rest. Just out of shock. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we know like if resurrection magic is possible? Is that a thing that any of the clerics do?
I think as sort of a common knowledge level, you know that it's definitely uncommon to the point of almost non-existence. There's a handful, like probably Davis is powerful enough to sort of call a spirit back to its body, but I mean, you're talking powerful people. Maybe, Abbott Vance
Okay.
or Abbess Vance.
Right.
I don't know if we gender differentiated those terms. Or Ertralux, the head of Solonism and the Hall of Light in Queensboro. You're talking big name powers.
Right.
Ironically, someone like Lambton could also perhaps have done it as Oryx's Fey patron.
Right.
I wouldn't have wanted that.
Yeah.
If I had a will, it would be in there.
Do not let Lambton resurrect me. Ever.
DNR subclause Lambton specifically.
Yeah, then I guess we'll rest.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said, John.
I just said, yeah, I guess we'll rest.
Okay. Okay. So, long rest.
You all treat your wounds. By now, you all have. I think maybe in moments like this, it sort of underlines how unusual your lives have become.
Yeah.
You all have some serious wounds, very substantial, especially fighting the fragments of the War Raven. You all have some horrifying cuts, things that would normally take months and months to heal. A solid evening of rest, and you all are fully topped up again. All of your abilities, all of your health. And now you can no longer avoid deciding how to proceed.
You know what first just came to my mind?
Oh dear.
I'm going fishing, said Simon Peter. Don't know what to do. Go back to what you used to do. But no, we're not going to do that. Just that was what came into my brain. And I was like, that would be really funny. And it's definitely the kind of thing that you get in Pastor D&D.
And on Saturday, they fished.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. Then it just means that Ark's going to come out and cook breakfast.
Please don't turn me into a Christ figure.
So I don't know who among your contacts, Cyrus, you want to explore. I mean, do we talk to Mort? Does Mort have any ideas? Do we? I mean, because we can definitely go to Lux Etrolux. It's like, boom. Since I have connections there, but
I don't know what Mort's going to be able to. We might be able to ask Mort some things, but I don't think we'll be
yeah,
able to. I don't think Mort can fix.
he may not be able to fix
anything.
it, but I don't know if he would be a source of information.
So I mean, he might,
Clues.
because he's definitely not powerful enough to do that.
Right.
And I doubt the Queen, but I don't know what the state of the Queen's power is at this point, so I don't know if
Right, Lady Bren.
no, the
No.
Phantom Queen or
Oh.
whoever it was that powered
Dark-
up
Dark
Bran
Matron.
that talks to
Right.
Oric on occasion.
That one.
She would be another person to perhaps figure out how to contact.
We have to do like a seance or something here.
Well, we'll probably know.
Mort would probably know. I don't know. I say we go and we ask Mort to start because with Etrolux, am I saying that right? While dude's got power, he may not be quite as informed on Fae. So it might be easier to get answers so that we can then answer some of his questions if he's able to help. So he may be like, oh, that's cool. I could probably do that, but I wouldn't know where to start. So
Okay.
Okay. Let's do that.
okay.
So I'm going to go check in with Airtrolux and see what options he might offer you.
I think
Well,
Mort first.
Oh,
yeah,
Mort,
Mort
okay.
first to ask some questions, and then we'll go then we'll talk to somebody with the power.
All right. So we'll throw this to Cyrus. Where is Mort's current safe house? Whatever you throw out's going to be correct.
I don't remember anything. I'm sorry. I don't.
There
really
is no
don't
correct
remember anything
answer.
about
This is just
city
letting you.
geography to be able to even start.
I mean, do you think he'd like? What would be his brand of trickery? Is it like, hidden in an office building, a fake wall in a warehouse? Is it just like an unassuming apartment in the middle of town somewhere? Is it down an elevator with a mysterious hidden button?
Yeah, I think this was just an apartment.
So you all head off. I think we've established you've kind of been in and out of here a handful of times. And this is maybe even like the second or third one that Mort has occupied since his return. Perhaps trying to escape Alex and Sana, who continue to follow him, not having really places of their own. So his current place is an unassuming apartment. Let's go to our notes. It's helpful if I open notes before we start. Especially because they're so long at this point. 34,000 words. Yeah. I think it's probably in Vert, but not in like the nicest part of it. I think actually it's in a similar neighborhood to where Cyrus's apartment is, but like in a different part of Verde. So it's not like the really high end part, where it's more like the upper middle class, lower upper class energy. It's where it starts to bleed back into Falmouth, where Auric and Lexi's places are.
Okay.
So you find this unassuming apartment, and you don't know how Mort did this. So you get to this floor, and it looks like there are more apartments all across this floor. But Cyrus, you would know this. All of the sort of entryways on one side of the building are fake. Somehow Mort has like bought out half of a floor and turned it into this like massive complex.
That is the exact opposite of what I figured he had done.
Oh, he's got every kind of safe house. Like there's others that are like literally a cot in a closet.
I was figuring that it was like it was supposed to be like one house and you walked into it and there were all these doors because he'd like hid all his friends or something.
Well, and that's what it is. Like you get inside, it looks like there's all these doors, but only one of them opens, and it's not the same one every time, which is very confusing.
Of course.
But once you enter, there's like it's almost set up like a barracks inside. Like
Okay.
very small self-contained rooms, but there's like 10 of them. So he's occupying one, Alex and Sana each have one. Then there's a lot of empty rooms, although Alex's stuff keeps spilling over into more and more rooms.
Gee, who
every,
does that sound like that we know, Joe? That sounds like me.
every time they come back, they bring something like random and it's just piling up. But there's also like a small armory and a big training space. There's like a command center room with all kinds of spy accoutrement. So you arrive, and Mort is waiting for you. It takes a couple of attempts to figure out which door opens, but you find it. And you're able to make your way
Secret
in.
knock or something.
How much do you tell Mort about why you're coming?
You mean beforehand or when we get there?
Yeah, like beforehand.
Okay.
I assume you have to tell him at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cyrus is not saying anything ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the
Sending him a
one.
text saying we need to talk and just letting him figure out what that means.
Yep.
Got some questions for you about Faye and
And
the
what's looking like,
afterlife.
are they breaking up with me?
Got some questions for you about Faye and the afterlife, resurrection, that sort of thing.
I feel
By
like
the way, Auric's dead.
I feel like Mort
Oh?
is exactly the kind of person who sends the "we need to talk" message, like in a way that he doesn't realize is ominous.
Yes.
Which is nice here because he just accepts that as like okay, like he doesn't worry. He's just like, well, I'll find out when they get here.
Yeah. Mort's the type to send we need to talk, and when you get there, it's like, where's the peanut butter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you eat my peanut butter? Or
No, not even why did you eat it? Just which shelf did you put it in again?
which shelf did you put it in again? That's what I'm here to talk about. I can't find the peanut butter.
All right. So you make your way in. Mort is waiting for you. I think as you come in, there is a strange, acrid taste to the air and a weird chill. And it immediately reminds you of sort of negative energy, sort of necrotic magic. And there is a huge, like, blasted black handprint on a wall. And Alex and Sana are down in the training area being harassed by some kind of, like, It's essentially like a soft pitch machine, but it's like 50 of them, and it's targeting them from all around the room. In a sort of uncharacteristic display, as you are walking in, you catch the tail end of Mort yelling something like, "Maybe next time you won't do it again." Then you just hear like that funk, 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 ow, funk, ow. And Mort just like instantly switches off and's like, "Okay, what did you need?"
So Oric's dead or dead-ish. We don't know where he is. He kind
And I
of
need to
died and
know,
vanished.
and I need to know what these are.
And all this took place in the old Raven Palace, like underground.
Here's an age-old question I have to ask myself. Does Mort have a stat block? Mort has never needed a stat block. So, we're going to say Mort is going to make an Arcana check. We're going to say that he is. Man, y'all are up to +4. We're going to say that Mort has a +10 in Arcana.
Fair.
Oh, Mort got a nat 20.
Oh, good.
You see Mort stop for a moment, and he sort of like unfocuses. Like he's sort of looking past you all for a minute. I think the story is more complicated than just he's dead.
Well, I figured that. I just didn't know where to start.
You see him trying to focus. Well, the simpler question first. Those are fragments. Uh, you might think of them as Cyrus seeds. They're parts of my power that have fragmented into their smallest state. He reaches out and sort of runs a finger through one. And when he does, it becomes much more visible immediately, but still disperses like mist as his finger trails through it and then kind of sucks back together. And as his finger passes through, it's not quite as severe, but you do catch just a little bit of the same thing that happens to Cyrus. As his finger passes through, like his fingernail goes black and sharp and thick, and his finger goes gray down to about here.
You mean like the bird effect that we had?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he says, "These are the smallest unit of my power, of which," and he points to your coat, Cyrus. He says, "Of which that is a greater fragment," and then he points at you and he says, "And you a greater fragment still. But if things are breaking down in this way, that space is deteriorating faster than I expected."
Yeah, well, they were beating the crap out of us too. That's how we lost Dark. Tell your fragments to behave, dude.
Well, that's what makes them fragments, is that they're not a part of me anymore. But they should have been relatively stable indefinitely.
Well, something else has been in there too. And Cyrus will describe the fire trail.
Both of you give me an insight check.
22.
20.
Mort seems thoughtful for a second. And he says, I'm not sure what that could be. There aren't many things that should be able to enter that space. With me back in the city, it should have resealed itself. The only reason the Kingsguard were able to enter was that the space was decaying in my absence. But well, that is another thing for concern.
Out of curiosity, and this is part Rachel and part Lexi. Um, so decaying, would him coming back to the city have just paused it, or would it have then grown it back?
It
Like
should have
strengthened,
resealed itself.
resealed itself. Okay. And so improved essentially rather than like being at a stasis.
Yeah, it should have gone back to sort of its standard setting.
Okay. Okay.
And that should even potentially have suppressed like the artifact items that you all found that had sort of taken over hosts.
Right.
That had all sort of gone out of control after Mort was taken off the board.
Right.
Now, as to the bigger question, there are ways in which you might be able to discern more of what is happening. But they likely involve bargaining with some larger power. While I once had a much greater arsenal of magic at my disposal, it is not what it once was. Was there any part of him left?
No body. He left his stealth.
I could
Did we
offer.
say that Lexi would have noticed the string? I'm trying to remember. Maybe not understood it, but at least noticed that something happened.
I mean, I don't even know that you would have known to call it a string per se, but like a silvery manifestation of magic.
Okay. I guess, yeah, Lexi would mention that because she's trying to mention everything she can. don't want to have the same brain problems that I do.
The way I would interpret what you have told me, Auric it's hard for me to believe, but it sounds as if Auric was truly it's hard to say what something interfered. Whether to his benefit or detriment, it is hard to say. Whether it saved body or spirit, whether it saved him at all, whether it has made his situation worse. I could walk you through a ritual to contact the lady. If
That
anyone,
might be a direction we need to take.
if anyone, she would certainly be the one to know if he is at least alive or dead. Is that the course you all want to take?
Sounds like a pretty good one. I mean,
What's she gonna want?
yeah, that's true.
That is
Auric.
that is hard to say. Her manifestations cost her dearly. Bran Auric has always had something of an open channel because of the way in which she invested in him. But to reach others is more difficult.
So we probably need to start with some of Auric's stuff that has the most essence of Auric.
Essence of Auric.
I don't know.
Well, if we just need to talk to her, she probably doesn't need his stuff.
Well, but how do we talk to her if we don't have a connection to her?
I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I was thinking I'm thinking again, some sort of seance, and it's like, all right, so bring out,
So
bring out his favorite sweater.
his ritual will
Snow
probably help you to make contact, but at the same time, there is probably a price in power as much as it's not the form of the ritual. It is the power required to use it.
Okay. So this might be where bringing Etralux in, or hey Vela, you wanna have a seance with your dead boyfriend's patron? Have some communication. I don't know why seance is like the word that I'm using tonight, but apparently it is.
Sure, let Vela know. Get me into all the trouble.
Well, you're the dead one. I'm the one that watched it happen, so I'm the one that's gonna get chewed out for it. I'm the one who's gonna get told that, as the responsible adult, I should have done something.
So I think that in this moment, this is Lexi like sort of just yelling at empty air, thinking this through. Like Vela is going to be so mad at her.
I don't know.
Lexi talks to Arik in her head. She just doesn't know that he's listening.
We got a decent amount of powerful stuff. Let's start with talking to the queen and see what we can learn. We can wait for Vela if we need to actually power up a resurrection or something.
Okay. Are we powerful enough to do this ritual to talk to her?
So Mort has the how to phrase it. Mort has the spell known, but doesn't have the slot.
Right.
So you're probably going to have to sacrifice something to make this happen. Now, a resurrection would be even a higher sacrifice than that.
Right.
But you don't currently have any part of his body, which is an issue for several of the resurrection spells.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so is one of these ravens enough to power up the ritual?
The ravens could help, but they're probably not going to be able to do it on its own. You're essentially performing a commune ritual, which is normally a 5th level spell.
Okay.
But also, Mort is a little bruised and battered from an arcane perspective. So you're sort of trying to scrape together a commune spell scroll, basically.
Okay. So, what are we talking about?
Could we invite her to the Heroes Feast? My 6th level spell slot. I'm just trying to think it through.
So that would definitely work.
Okay.
I think you run the risk of whatever's used for this is probably going to be consumed.
It's a good thing I have a dog that makes mead.
Oh no, magically consumed. Like the pact.
Like the beer saw pact would get consumed. Okay. Okay.
Okay, but what level of thing? Like an item, 5 items? I still don't I don't understand, like, or do we just have to guess and say we're using X and then you'll tell us if it's powerful enough to work?
Give me an Arcana check.
Well,
Oof.
17.
With a 17, if you had to put it into mechanical terms, something that was like a very rare item would probably do it for sure. A rare item and maybe some of the raven fragments would do it, or like a few different common or uncommon items and some of the fragments would do it.
I'm looking at what I've got.
And you could potentially substitute some of that with the magic of a powerful caster.
Did I have more than one hero light shard?
So you have your original,
Right.
which is the one that has sort of the angel feather appearance.
Yes.
And then you have the one that you pulled from Marcus Prim, which sometimes
Right.
looks like a gross eyeball.
Would that one work?
It is
We've also
connected to one of your abilities.
we've
Okay.
also got the Blood Moon Blade, which is a very rare item and is not something we're using, and
Okay.
I think we're unlikely to use. Um, it's not any better than your mallet, so I
Right.
don't I don't envision.
All right. Would you like to use it for the ritual?
Sure.
Sure.
All right. So Mort is going to loop in Sana to help with this because it is. She's a little bit more of a spellcaster than him at this point. Theoretically, Alex could do it, but Alex is a little more. Sana is a legitimate cleric of the Raven Queen, and Alex has a complicated working relationship with her.
Yeah.
So the ritual is best performed at dusk, specifically as dusk sort of bleeds into true night, and it's best performed on a battlefield where a lot of folks have died. Is there anything else you all want to
So
do before this ritual?
I was gonna say, so do we have to go back to the palace?
Oh no, no. You know that Queensboro, there are several like sites of battles around Queensboro, and Mort knows exactly where they are.
Yeah. It's kind of like just living where we live and going, oh yeah, I live on a battlefield. It's a house now, but yeah.
Yep. So is there anything else you all would like to do before you do this ritual?
The player would like a quick break to use the restroom.
All right.
I'm going to say that.
I'll go grab a drink.
Okay.
All right. All right. Gathering all of the ritual accoutrement that you need, Sana has changed back into the sort of armor and robes that you first met her in. And Lexi, I don't know if you've run into her since then. Her common has gotten much better.
Oh, good.
There are still weird lapses where, just to imagine it as a player, it's almost like she drops into like Chaucer English, and not like the way people read Chaucer English in like an English class, like true, inexplicable old Chaucer language.
Hmm.
But for the most part, she is sort of up to date. Um, so I'll gather the accoutrement, and you head out past the outskirts of Queensboro, outside the city proper, actually very close to where Fickle Spirits is. And you head out until you see a sign. And it's just like a small historical, with those little like black with sort of gold writing on metal signs. The Battle of Arlen Hill Historic Battleground. It's a big, beautiful green hill, just sort of luxurious grass just running off all the way out into the distance. The city is far enough behind you that it still sort of dominates like a little strip of the horizon, but you're quite a few miles outside the city at this point. The sun is slowly setting in the distance, and it's really nice out here. Spring has truly come at last, and it is very nice. And then as the sun, all the color bleeds out of it. The pink and orange and gold of sunset finally sinks just past the horizon. So the night is both twilight but also just barely illuminated with sun. And you feel like you have passed into a liminal time and space. And the experience is haunting. You've both probably been here before. Cyrus, you definitely would have been dragged on like a school trip out here. And it would have been a very awful school trip. Like, you'd get out here and there was probably some like local historian who was like, and here was the Battle of Arlen Hill. Except they didn't know any of the real history then. So it was like the arrayed forces of Arlen battled someone on this field, and many people died. And then you ate, bologna and cheese sandwiches out of a brown paper bag, and then got back on the bus.
Lexi might have gone to school before that was a thing.
Well, I think we also debated. I think we decided Lexi is a transplant. Like, she's been in Queensboro for a while, but this is
Yeah,
not
I guess she
maybe.
is.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
not maybe where she grew up. This was where she sort of fell out after the military.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes from being this sort of beautiful green open space, and as the whole world starts to turn gray, mist starts to rise up off of this battlefield. And you imagine that probably a normal person standing here would not perceive this. But for you all, it is omnipresent. As far as you can see, there is this cool, frigid mist rising up off the ground. And it feels like death. You hear the sounds of, it's almost like the sound of a whole battle layered over itself. The sound of clanging arms, the sound of wounds, the sound of people dying in some fairly horrible ways. And all of it layers over itself. And you even hear voices of regret, voices of plaintive and involuntary continuation. This is a haunted space. Mort gets a very distant look in his eyes, and as he looks around, you can tell that he sees even more than you hear. There is a gleam to his eyes that is distinctly inhuman in this moment. Sana is arranging these ritual elements. There are lines of powders and chalk. There are handfuls of these beautiful, gorgeous black feathers. There are vials and containers of liquids that you probably don't want to know the contents of. These things are arrayed, and as all of this sort of reaches a peak, she invites you to set the Blood Moon blade into the center. As it makes contact with some of the ritual elements, you see something vital flood out of it into the ritual. The sword immediately rusts all along its length. It looks like it's aged 1,000 years. Black mist, deeper and darker than coming off the battlefield, is rising up, but it doesn't fully escape. It's like it's trapped by the ritual. All of these candles that have been sitting inert and cold snap to life, but the flames on them are this dark gray, almost black. And then everything goes quiet. And then you hear it in the distance. The sound of thousands, tens of thousands of cawing, flapping ravens. And as you look through the ritual space, off in the distance, this huge cloud of ravens, enough to black out a football field, rises up in the distance and is streaming towards you. But if you look to the side, past the ritual, there's nothing there. They come closer and it becomes louder. It becomes a physical presence, the beating of so many wings. And as all of these ravens fix their eyes on the four of you, you know that one being is looking out at you through each of their eyes. There is a pressure in the air. You feel it push and tug. It is oppressive and heavy. And in the midst of this horrible pressure, a very rich, feminine voice says, "Yes?"
Auric fell in battle but disappeared. Do you know where he has gone?
So when you, before you make it fully to the end of that question, Sana, like, as fast as you can see, like, puts a hand over your mouth, and she says, "Yes and no questions. You have 3 of them."
Oh.
Is it possible to get Auric back?
Would you like to use that as one of your questions?
The gist of it, but I'm trying to think of fine tuning it because I'm a verbal processor.
And that's why I did want to give you the opportunity instead of being like, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, basically what we want to know. Yeah. Can you resurrect Auric? That's one way to put it. Is Auric in your domain? That's another good one. Because I'm also thinking like, is it possible to bring Auric back? And she say yes, but like it means Auric is like a ghost or something.
Yeah.
At the same time, like thinking of Gandalf the Grey versus Gandalf the White. If we don't necessarily need Auric the Grey back. Auric the White is totally fine, but probably even better. But just the idea of like we're not necessarily asking for him to come back exactly as he is, more than just like, can we get him back functioning and able to continue this quest and the duties that he must do?
Does he have a brother named Boric?
So these are all the thoughts swirling in Rachel's head right now.
All right. What are your questions?
So I'm wondering if we should start with something like, can Auric be returned to life? Because can you resurrect Auric? Could be answered no, because she doesn't have the power, or it could be answered no.
Can Auric be returned to life on this plane of existence? On this here current plane of existence.
All right. Is that your first question?
Yes.
One of you roll a persuasion check with advantage.
What's your plus?
5.
Yeah, you do it. I have a 1.
22.
All right. So your question was, can Auric be brought back to this plane of existence?
Brought back to life on this plane of existence.
So your check was pretty good. I think her answer is yes. You do feel like there is something of an asterisk on the yes.
Well, duh. We're talking to Faye. There's always an asterisk.
Oh no.
Or the asterisk is he isn't actually dead, and so he can be brought back to this plane.
Yeah. Of course, now I'm thinking of Mad Max. Is that Mad Max? Yeah. Max is the character's name. He's not all dead. He's mostly dead.
Miracle Max.
Miracle Max, thank you. Mad Max is Fury Road.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that sounds like Princess Bride.
Yeah.
All right. What is your second question?
Do we want to ask if she can return him?
I mean, it's worthwhile. Yeah. We know he's returnable.
Yeah.
So, and if we're asking yes or no questions, it's a lot harder to ask, okay, how do we do it?
Right.
Although Mort may be able to help us at least find the right spells and stuff.
Yeah.
Rituals and stuff. So, um,
So are we asking about resurrection, or are we just asking, how do we want to phrase it?
yeah, I know. I don't speak cat, so I don't know what that means. You are such a loud kitten.
I mean, so I guess we could repeat our language and we could ask it that way.
Repeat our language and what?
So I put it in chat. So
Oh.
we can ask it as like, can you bring Auric back to life on this plane of existence?
Is that what you want to go with?
Can you return Auric alive to this plane of existence?
Cool. Let's do that.
All right, give me another persuasion check.
Still with advantage?
Yes.
$24.
This one is a no with an asterisk.
Do we want to ask if he's in the Feywild?
That might not be a bad idea. Because Rachel, the player, certainly has some inkling that I'm pretty sure that Lexi would not, as to where Art could be. Rachel 100% thinks he's at Granny's house, but that doesn't mean.
So do we want to ask that? Do we want to be that specific? Do we want to just straight up ask if
Auric at Granny's house?
If he's there, or do we want to ask more general if he's in the Feywild and assume if yes, that's where we start?
Yeah, I would say the latter, more general, but start at Granny's.
Okay.
All right. So is the question, is Auric in Fairy, or is the question, is Auric at grandmother's?
Fairy.
Give me another persuasion check.
$13.
There's no hesitation this time. The answer is yes. The candles around the edge of the ritual start to gutter and flicker. And the flapping swarm of ravens, they start to become, it's almost like they're dissolving. And they become quieter as they do. And there's just sort of a gray mist hanging. And in the mist, for just a moment, you see this silhouette that you sometimes catch in the edges of Oryx's spirit guardians. This tall, imposing woman with pale features and dark black hair pulled back. And she smiles in a way that is somehow both joyful and deeply ominous. And she leans down, and with a long fingernail, it almost looks like she's reaching down, and she starts to run her finger along the ruins of this blade. And there is a screeching sound. It's
Lovely.
like nails on chalkboard, but to a horrible degree. It is just the worst sound you've ever heard. And she carved something along the length of this blade. And then she laughs, and her laugh dissolves into the sounds of calling birds. Then the whole ritual gutters out.
Okay, so time to find a portal. Where was the one that we found that landed us near Granny's? That was in the Weir house, wasn't it?
So when you went through the portal in the Weirwood warehouse, that got you somewhat near there, but you also know that it's a little bit ambiguous how fairy geography works.
Go figure.
Just for fun, both of you give me a perception check.
13. Lame.
All right. Cyrus, it occurs to you, it doesn't look like she was just scratching to make a loud noise. It looks like she carved something into the pieces of the Blood Moon blade.
Is it legible?
It looks like text. It does not look like a text that you know how to read.
Does Sana?
You invite Sana over, and she looks, and she holds up. She grabs some of the pieces and looks at them, and then she looks at you, very confused. And then she looks at the pieces again, and she says, It's an address and a time and a date.
Okay.
What are they?
When and where?
The date is for the date is 2 days later, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And you recognize that the address is somewhere. It's somewhere in Falmouth, but more than that, it's you recognize this address.
Can I like open up Goggle Maps and
Yep. You put it in, and it pops back out. It's an advertised page, so it gets priority. Midsum, pawn, and fine goods.
Okay. So I guess you know what we're doing then.
So the ritual complete. You have this sapped and fractured blade. You have a mysterious address with a date and a time. What would you like to do until then? Is there anything on your priority list while you have a moment?
no? Everything on our priority list was contingent on Oric and the Seals. We don't have anything else.
All right. Are you going to investigate this in any way, or are you just going to show up then?
I'm fine with showing up then. I mean, it's midsummer, so it's a place we've been before.
Would you like to be inside the shop or outside?
Um, hmm.
Oh, I guess I have another question too. After about 12 more hours after the ritual, Vela starts calling and texting.
God.
Do you do you all tell her anything?
I mean, my incredibly honest self as a player is like, yeah, I should probably tell her. At least be like, okay, we're working on it. We don't think he's totally dead. We're pretty sure he's in Fairy. We're pretty sure he got sucked into Fairy, so we're trying to go find him
So,
Do you
and
want to tell
invite her
her
to come along on this date to Midsummer Pond.
I think
Honestly, we probably should have had her join in the ritual and watch her scream at the Raven Queen.
when you open with, I don't think he's fully dead, you see like dot 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 dot, and then it goes off, and Vela shows up immediately right next to you, holding like the melted remains of a phone. It's like, what do you mean not fully dead? And then you can tell her these other things.
Yep.
So we cut ahead. Vela is with you all. Did you say inside the shop or outside?
I kind of figured inside.
unless you want to split the, I don't know if splitting the difference is a good idea or a bad idea.
I know, I'm kind of like,
One of us
I
in,
want
one
to
of us
stand at the
out.
door frame.
So where do you want to be? Do you want to be in and out?
Cyrus is gonna go inside. What's that?
Yeah, I'll probably go inside, but stand close to the front door.
All right. You all are doing some browsing, which you all do have like 25,000 gold or something that needs spending.
Yeah, yeah. I think I
So,
have 2,900 just by myself.
yeah, be thinking on what you would like to do with that. But
Yeah.
as you're standing there, uh, B is just sort of puttering around the shop, and it gets awkward after a minute because I guess you all are kind of shopping, but you're also just sort of waiting, and he's not really sure what to do with that. And after a while, he just starts trying to make awkward conversation, like, "Did you see the ball game the other day?"
I don't watch sports ball.
Right as it sort of lapses into awkwardness, an alarm goes off that you've never heard before. It's very quiet, and it seems to be coming from like B's phone. And his eyes get really big, and he's like, "I'm gonna need you all to just wait here for just a minute." And he runs into the back, and you very distantly hear him yell, "What are you doing in my store?" And Auric, you pop back into the scene. You stumble out into the back room, this sort of dusty, unused square room, through this rip in space that grandmother tore for you. Stultus stumbles out behind you, heavy enough that he like has a little momentum and like crunches into a table and it just breaks. And B is like, "What are you?" And you all can hear parts of this from outside.
All right.
Vela, meanwhile, has heard Arik's voice. Or maybe not, because I don't know if she's heard Arik speak yet.
Stultus, this is B. B. Stultus.
Why? What are you coming? What? I've got a front door.
Long story. We'll pay for that.
Sorry, it wasn't his choice.
And Auric, you would remember that the last thing you were told, not the last thing, the next to last thing you were told, is tell B we're even.
Oh, grandmother says you're even now.
He starts swearing, but it's almost like there is an automatic censor happening because every time it, like in the middle of each word, there's a.
All right, I was wondering if that was a good thing or a bad thing. That answers my question.
So our party is loosely reunited. Auric returning from strange journeys through life, death, and beyond, with stories to share with you all. With the radically changed Stultus in tow. What I'll do is to save us a little time, I'll say between sessions, Auric, if you want to sum up key information you'd like to share, I assume Rachel will hear it immediately, but throw in the message for John. And also, if you all think of any shopping needs, assume at this point you can get most things on at least the uncommon and common items, a good selection of rare items. And if you don't know what you want specifically, but you have an idea of what would be helpful, let me know, and we'll help you all spend some of that gold.
Potions of healing.
I still have some. I just didn't have the opportunity
You
to
just
drink
couldn't
them.
use them.
And we will close with as you tell B this, we just sort of pull back and back and back, and then our perspective, suddenly we're looking down into a huge pot, like a screen looking down on a distant Queensboro. And grandmother is just cackling, rocking back and forth in her chair, and starting to knit a new scarf. So that
It's
is
like
where
when the Wicked Witch of the West was watching them through the ball.
this is where we will come back next week. I will go ahead and cut off our recording.
Recording stopped.
And cut off our stream, and we will see everyone back next week.
Yep.
Bye, Internet.
Bye.